On today's Tech Talk, we're going to discuss lug nuts. And before you go for that comment and ask, why are we talking about lug nuts? Well, we actually get a lot of questions about lug nuts as far as what style should I use or why would I replace my brand new lug nuts? Well, today we're going to answer all those questions and more. So let's start with the basics. What is a lug nut? Well, most European cars, or to say a lot of European cars, use lug bolts, where it's actually a bolt that holds the wheel to the hub. In the case of most American cars, including Mustangs, you're gonna have a wheel stud or lug, and you have a nut that basically threads onto that and holds the wheel in place. There's a bunch of different styles of lug nuts, basically depending on what kind of wheel you're using. And we also have our factory lug nuts and our factory options. There's a few issues with the factory lug nuts, which is why you want to probably consider replacing them. So before we get to why you'd replace your lug nuts, let's talk about a couple different styles of lug nut. Here you have your factory acorn nuts in two different sizes. This is going to be a basic open-ended lug nut. This will be a closed-end lug nut. This will be an extended lug nut. These are both going to be small diameter. This is going to be a regular 3/4 inch version, and this will be a splined lug nut that will require a special socket to tighten and loosen it. Here you have theft-proof lug nuts. These are going to require a special key to be over this or inserted in there to open them. You have your shank style lug nut, popular with drag wheels. At the end here, we have a direct replacement one-piece lug nut. Now, the reason that you go with a one-piece is because of an issue with the factory lug nuts. I'm going to explain it to you right now. These are going to be factory lug nuts off your late model Mustang. Basically, it's a 13/16 lug nut. Got to put this on, fits fine, take your lug nut off. What happens to a lot of owners, though, is they go to do that, especially if you live in a rough climate, you go to put it on, you can see it actually won't go on all the way, and you're going to damage the lug nut. The reason for that is this style lug nut is actually a two-piece lug nut. So Ford and some other manufacturers use a two-piece lug nut. And basically, it's a steel lug nut inside with a chrome cap, which is less expensive than building a solid chrome lug nut, but it gives you that better-looking lug nut when it's exposed within your Mustang's factory wheels. Fortunately, what happens with these, especially if you live in a climate like we do, is basically you get your two-piece here. Stuff will get inside there. You can get corrosion, water, whatever from normal use, and this will actually end up expanding. Once it expands to a certain point, you're not going to get it off without taking something like this, putting it on, and literally hammering it on each individual lug nut, and then taking them off one at a time. Now, if you're not doing that yourself, you're going to pay someone a decent amount of money to do it, but the worst part is if you do get a flat tire somewhere and you go to change it, if this happens, you're not going to be able to get those lug nuts off, and you're not going to be able to install your spare tire, and you're going to be stuck. Now here's our one-piece black lug nut. We sell a ton of these for late model Mustangs. The benefit of this is basically there's two benefits. One, it's a solid one-piece design, so you're not gonna have any issues with expansion on this lug nut. Secondly, it actually looks better. A lot of your Mustangs today are gonna come with a black wheel, and the chrome lug nuts just really stick out like a sore thumb. So the black lug nut, again, you're not gonna get that issue where they're not gonna bloat like the factory lug nut, and the black, in a lot of cases, is gonna look a lot better. Moving down here, you can see these are more factory Ford lug nuts. These, I believe, are off of a Focus or a Fiesta, but again, you can see that two-piece design. These can do the same thing. They can get corrosion in there, they can cause bloating. So again, definitely something worth replacing. These are looking more of like a classic lug nut. The basic nut like that is designed for your early Mustang with hubcaps. Ford used stuff like this because, again, they're hidden, you're not going to see them. But if you go with a nicer set of wheels like your styled steel wheel or something like that with a visible lug nut, we offer these here. These are, again, original style lug nuts, but it's a one-piece steel lug nut, and they look a lot better if the lug nut is going to be visible on your wheel. These here are going to be more factory replacement style lug nuts. This is an extended lug nut. This will be a replacement for your factory lug nut on usually a custom wheel that might have a deep center, or it might be harder to get down there and get to a factory style lug nut. The extended one makes it a lot easier to get a socket on it and get it into place. These are going to be small diameter lug nuts. Now again, these are based more for your aftermarket wheel that may have a smaller opening where the factory lug nut is not going to fit, and you use the small one as replacement. Now these are a spline style lug nut. What makes these unique is basically you'll need this tool to go on there to put the lug nut on and take it off. That allows you to get that in a much smaller area without damaging the wheel. It also adds an element of security. If somebody is looking to steer your wheels, they might have normal sockets and stuff with them, but they may not have the spline one. Now the splines are not unique, so basically you can buy this lug nut anywhere and take them off, but it adds a little bit of security, and again, it makes it much easier to install your wheel without damaging it. Now here you have theft-proof lug nuts. So these were very popular for a while, but people are kind of getting away from them for a couple different reasons. One is you need a special lug, basically a lug socket, to fit over this or to fit in there to remove these. Normally you only have them on one lug of each wheel, but if you lose that socket, it's really difficult to get these off. Basically, you have to take a 12-point socket and hammer it over these to get them off, which becomes very, very expensive to do. Again, if you lose the key, if you have the number, you can call the manufacturer, they can get you another one, but most people lose the key along with the number, and then you're kind of out of luck. So again, these do work for security, but if you get them, make sure you don't lose the key. And as you can see, lug nuts come in all shapes and sizes. The other thing you want to be specific about is the size of your lug nut. Your 65 through 2014 Mustang is going to use a standard half 20 lug nut. Starting in 2015 through current, Ford switched to metric, so it's going to be a 14 millimeter by 1.5. So if you're buying new lug nuts for your Mustang, make sure you get the proper thread. Other thing you want to consider if you're upgrading or changing lug nuts is make sure it's the same size wrench. If you happen to keep a lug wrench in your vehicle and you're working on an older car and the original ones might have been a 13/16, but you went to a small diameter, well now it's a 3/4. So again, make sure if you have a lug wrench in the car, you have the right size socket. But again, a good set of lug nuts, especially a nice upgrade here, it's a great way to make sure if you are on the road, if you get a flat, if you have a problem, you don't have to deal with that bloated lug nut. A one-piece lug nut would be a much better way to go and get you back on the road in no time.